So 1 million players in a game like Imperial Galactic War or EVE Online would basically generate those kinds of transaction volumes in a matter of a year.
Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull. I do some work for the HBAR Foundation, but the opinions expressed in this interview are just those of my guest and I, and today we have some good ones. We have Miko, the co-founder and chief creative officer for the gaming company Vavel, and Alex, the head of the HBAR Foundation Metaverse Fund. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hi.
Great to be here.
All right. Yeah, great to have you guys. So just to kick it off, Miko, before we get into what you're doing with Hedera, can you run us through your background and Vavel's history?
Sure. My name is Miko, or Miko Marcic. I'm the founder and chief creative officer at Vavel Game Studio. Vavel Game Studios is a technology company that builds technology for MMO and decentralized worlds. We are a gaming company that happens to build a tech that's needed to run MMO games. And we're excited to start entering the Web3 space with Hedera Hashgraph. Few words about myself. I have been working on games for over 10 years now. I've been predominantly focused on massively multiplayer online role-playing or real-time strategy games, but I worked in most types of games in those 10 years. So super excited to be here.
All right, good stuff. And we're going to talk about the HBAR Foundation providing some support for you guys. So Alex, in what ways did Vavel stand out to receive support from the HBAR Foundation?
So Vavel is actually quite a special project from a personal perspective, because it's actually the very first grant that we finalized at the HBAR Foundation, not just for the Metaverse Fund, but for the whole foundation as a whole. So we had just set ourselves up into Salesforce and all of those admin features, and Vavel just happened to be at the front of the queue, which goes to show sometimes how long these things are in the works behind the scenes. Prior to joining the Hedera Hashgraph ecosystem, I was head of business development for a blockchain gaming company and ecosystem called Engine. So I've really been pitching NFTs for a long time to blockchain gamers. That sounds like a humble brag, but it's more of I've really spent a lot of time selling different people on NFTs. And the response from game developers for a long time has been kind of nervousness or suspicion about the technology. But for me, it's really key to engage the people who understand game design, game development, what is required to actually make an experience that keeps people coming back. And one of the things I always found was nervousness about the network you deploy on. Like, is it still going to be around in a few years because it takes a long time to build games? Is it going to be stable and supportive? Because game designers, they actually want to call someone up. If Call of Duty, the servers aren't working, they want to know someone's like on the end of the phone that they can shout at. So it's a very different value proposition to say, look, this Hedera piece, it's decentralized. There's no one at the end of the phone. But since open access, we're really battle tested and stress tested. This thing does not turn off one day, sure. Although I've heard some other networks do. So it was really great to engage with Vavel and to explain to them what use cases around NFTs and to talk to them about Hedera, and they got it, and then they start to run with their own ideas. And that's where the best part of being a BD person is in this space. You tell people about NFTs, give them some ideas, and then they start running away with the really cool use cases and implementations.
Sure. Makes sense. So, Miko, can you give us an idea of what are some of the current issues with gaming that you're trying to solve with the DLT like Hedera?
Well, I come from the background of an MMO gamer and a MMO game developer. And back in the day when I used to play those games and when I started out, whenever you wanted to buy items from other players within the economies, you had to go to eBay or one of those shady websites that you really didn't trust. And what I believe the DLT and the ledger-based technology that is provided by networks such as Hedera Hashgraph, it's really all about the trust and the ability to have blockchain-enabled gaming model where the assets are actually tracked on a public ledger and there's trustworthiness within the system so that when players transact, they actually have true ownership of the items that they have within the game. So that's really what makes it exciting. I always wanted to have a game where you can make real money inside of the game. And with the advent of blockchain gaming, we can make this natural transition from killing dragons for money within a game to being, fully sanctioned and legally compliant.
Yeah, well, we know that DLT and gaming has some links that go back pretty far. We talk about Mount Gox, and that was Magic the Gathering. They were trading cards, and that became an exchange. So there's definitely some roots that go back there for a while. But can you tell us a bit about Vavel's in-house decentralized metaverse engine tech?
So as I've mentioned earlier, we are a technology company that also builds games. That's the way we like to look at ourselves. We have our own MMO engine, which is decentralized, which means it can run on a single machine, or it can automatically scale up to millions of machines if we wanted to. It's only a matter of how many nodes do we run. It is built like a fintech solution, so it means it's very secure. It's hyper scalable, DDoS resistant, automatically load balances itself. And what's really exciting from the perspective of MMO development is, aside from the things such as the ability to have battles with tens of thousands of players, what is super exciting is that this is meant to be like a launchpad for MMOs. We would like to start out with one game and then build the Vavelverse, which is going to be multiple interlinked MMOs that would all rely on the same engine, the same technology, same principles, same item classes, and make it so that those assets would be interlinked between the games, so that you don't have multiple games that aren't really similar and you're trying to exchange a sword for a gun. In here, it wouldn't all make sense.
I gotcha. So let's get into the meat of it. How exactly are you integrating Hedera to solve these problems?
So in terms of the decentralization of our game, the game and everything around it was built from scratch in a decentralized manner, because the game runs on multiple nodes. So everything is hashed and everything has unique identifiers. In terms of linking the game with a network such as Hedera Hashgraph, it is very natural for us, because the only thing we really need to make sure is, if you have a spaceship in our game that persists within the sandbox, we need to make sure that we can tell to the engine that this asset was sold from one player to another. And as long as this link is maintained, the link is created, and the game would work with a DLT network almost seamlessly. So the only thing we have to implement is a means for the engine to communicate with a network, but not the game itself, which is already inherently designed to be decentralized.
Okay, I gotcha. So, Alex, how does Vavel fit into the HBAR Foundation Metaverse general strategy?
So gaming is definitely a big component of the metaverse strategy, definitely because of the user acquisition. Gaming is a big piece of consumer engagement, and then more broadly because gaming sets up these virtual worlds that now we're seeing enterprises embrace, either for kind of retail and brand exposure, or even for working in the metaverse, simulating things in the metaverse and virtual spaces. But what is exciting about this type of project as well is that games can get really big. And the Vavel technology is built to support tens of thousands of concurrent players within the same gaming instance. And from there, you start to get really complex economies. And what I like about Vavel's approach and the project they're bringing is years in development, so it has very deep infrastructure, very deep gameplay loops. And the reference point I make, and I think, Miko, you share a game designer with EVE Online. EVE Online is this really complex game which has been running for over 10 years. It has an economy the size of Iceland. And that's just a really awesome project that type of project is really awesome to see on Hedera, because it's proving that we have the throughput, we have the low fees, we have the stability to operate a huge gaming economy. And if we can do huge gaming economies, then we can do real world tokenized economies. So it'll be a bit of a race to see which is the economy that's fully run on Hedera first. Is it going to be a country's economy, or is it going to be the next EVE Online? That's what excites me here.
Yeah, might as well test it with gaming first, no question. So, Miko, can you tell us about the specific game that you're going to integrate Hedera with?
So the first game that will be rolled out within the Vavelverse and our ecosystem is called Imperial Galactic War. As Alex has mentioned it earlier, it shares the same one of the creators with EVE Online. It is a massively multiplayer online real-time strategy game or a role-playing game, both at once. It's a sandbox where players can fight in real time. So it's basically something like StarCraft MMORTS. And we're super excited about putting it out into the Web3 space in the coming year. The game is playable on Web 2.0 on our own platform. And when players download the launcher from our site, they will also be able to access the Web3 version once it comes out as a separate game entity.
I gotcha. So you've mentioned Vavelverse and you talked about it a little bit. Can you go a little bit more in depth of what your vision is for this Vavelverse?
So the Vavelverse is an interlinked system of MMOs that are built all in the same engine and share the same economy and item classes. And what's super exciting about it is that right now we have a spaceship game where you fight in space. Now, the next steps for our first title are going to be to implement space tanks and space marines of sorts. But taking it from there to the next step would be very simple to reskin the game and have a World War III type game, where instead of having space tanks, you have modern armor and modern warfare. So instead of having, let's say, an executioner class carrier, you could have a Nimitz class carrier. And then taking a game that is already reskinned for the modern warfare, it is going to be absolutely trivial to actually create a World War II game out of that. And it's all about having multiple IPs linked together within the same engine and utilize the fact that we've already invested millions of dollars into building this infrastructure. And we have an engine with a game that can support it. And then just change the artwork, change the game design, create new stories, new characters, instead of building this entire infrastructure from scratch. And that's the real strength of our engine. And we're happy to announce the Vavelverse today, basically.
I gotcha. Well, exciting stuff. So when will gamers be able to participate and what's their first step?
So the gamers are already able to participate in the Vavelverse for the Web 2.0 version of IGW, which is Imperial Galactic War 2.0. While they're going to be playing Web 2.0 variant, their progress will partially transcend into the Web 3.0, as we intend on actually giving back to the community a part of the tokens that would be necessary to speed things up. So we will have a kickback to the community itself, and the 3.0 version will start in next year, sometime Q1 2023, whereas we also have intentions of starting a land sale within the next few weeks, most likely mid-June.
I gotcha. Well, so it's coming up soon. So Alex, where do you see DLT gaming being in 10 years?
Well, 10 years, I think a lot's going to happen in that period. I think play to earn is going to work out a lot of is going to see some more failures and slowly work towards the kind of the long-term successes, as with all of these kind of new implementations. Decentralized gaming is very tricky because if you have something you're owned by the community, sometimes things can break and they can't be fixed. One of the aspects I think I like about these sort of MMOs, and especially with the complex economies, is you can perhaps give power to players to make those mistakes themselves. So one of the things that Miko was talking to me about was, you're in a game like EVE Online or IDW, you have these player factions. These people set up corporations and focus on economy, sort of economic development. Some people set up armies and focus on conquest. If those player communities decided to create their own DAOs within the game, then that starts to become very interesting. And maybe they even decide to experiment with their own stable coin to run those DAOs, and it collapses like we saw with US terror recently. And if that can happen within the sandbox environment, then you can have a huge amount of creativity. And then more broadly, I think this idea of DAOs in gaming is just going to grow and grow. And Miko was talking about this new IP. That direction will be decided on by the holders of Vavel assets and tokens. So maybe it's not World War II as the next theme. Maybe it's like a fantasy reskin. So I think players driving more of the gameplay and the gameplay loops and the narrative, as well as just the bigger picture of what studios work on. I think that's that's just going to be amazing to watch.
Yeah, for sure. So Miko, same question. Where do you see your industry and the integration with DLT going?
I think it's going to be a natural progression, such as, the introduction of any new technology requires early adopters and, transition to widespread adoption. So that's going to be the first aspect. In terms of the consumer market, I believe that it's just going to be one of the next platforms. There's still going to be Web 2 and there's going to be Web 3, but it's going to be about making it accessible to the customers in the way they want to see it. So if somebody decides to play the game on Steam, they can play on Steam. If they want to play on their phone, they can play on their phone. And I think it's just going to be one of those major platforms out there that the players can choose to, access the games with. It's definitely going to make things a lot bigger in terms of the scale of economies. Kind of like Alex said, I fully agree with his entire statement. But one of the most exciting things is probably going to be the scale of it. Like our game generates 130 transactions per player every month. So if you scale this up to millions of players, I believe Hedera Hashgraph has recently crossed 2 billion transactions. So 1 million players in a game like Imperial Galactic War or EVE Online would basically generate those kinds of transaction volumes in a matter of a year. So I think the scale at which it's going is going to be hugely impacted. Also, in terms of the kinds of projects that continue to live on, there's going to be multiple, smaller projects that just cease to exist. That's one of the reasons why we teamed up with Hedera Hashgraph, because we believe it is the future of DLT and ledger technology. It's backed by massive companies like Google. We love the fact that it is eco-friendly. That's one of the major reasons that we decided to work with Hedera. If it wasn't eco-friendly, if it would burn forests, we wouldn't really want to do that. And I really like that there is a transaction throughput that would enable this, because most networks do not have that. And Hedera being, the gossip protocol and this amazing technology basically will enables us to have billions of transactions a year if we so desire to. And if we were to grow even more, then the Hedera Hashgraph will definitely handle it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the perfect platform for you, being carbon negative and being able to handle those volumes of transactions. And the fact that you actually want to put, 1 billion transactions per year on the network, that's music to the ears of the Hedera community. They love hearing that kind of stuff. So, Alex, do you have any final thoughts before we let you guys go?
I think that was quite nicely summarized by Miko. I was hoping to. Well, I don't need to talk about the pros of Hedera to the community itself, but to anyone else tuning in, I'd say jump into Vavel's Discord and ping lots of questions at Miko. I've told him to expect a lot of questions from both sides. The Web 2 users and community, they're going to say, okay, what is this NFT stuff? What is this Hedera network? And then the Hedera community is really gonna push you on what you're doing with NFTs and how they can get involved and all of those pieces. So be prepared for a lot of inbound, Miko.
All right, exciting stuff. Congratulations, Miko. Is there anything else you'd like to pass on before we let you go?
I'm just super excited about this opportunity that we have been presented by the HBAR Foundation and Hedera Hashgraph. And I truly believe that it is the next big thing in technology, to be honest. The gossip protocol, everything about it is just really crazy in terms of technology. And we're super excited to be teaming up with the trust layer of the internet. And I think that MMOs, for them to have a really decentralized economy and to have a real life economy where players kill dragons for real money, there needs to be trust. And what better to go to than the trust layer of internet for that?
That's it. Thank you guys so much for swinging by.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brandon.